Progressive presents Get Pumped. Inspiration to help you do insurance stuff.
Okay, time out. You're gonna let your budget be the boss of you? Take control with Progressive's Name Your Price tool. Tell us what you want to pay for car insurance, and we'll help you find options that fit your budget. Here's some music to get you pumped. Da-dong, 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 dang, dang. I hear your budget laughing at you. Oh, wait, that's just those kids laughing at me. Ignore them! Da-dong, da-dong,
Progressive
da-dong.
Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Everyone, and welcome to Aquarian Radio on aquarianradio.com. And I'm your host, Janet Carol Lessin, and I have my co-hosts today with me, Karen Christine Patrick, and we're waiting for George Kavassilas. I'm crucifying names, but Kavassilas. He is from Australia. He's an author, acclaimed speaker, and a regular guest on the alternative radio circuit. And George has had an extraordinary life with a multitude of interactions with interdimensional and extraterrestrial beings of both benevolent and malevolent intent from many different levels of realities, both on and off world. In 2003, George took a journey with his consciousness and spirit through the dimensions of our universe and reintegrated with his soul. He rediscovered that what life in this universe is all about. He was able to once again remember who we all are, where we come from, what we are doing here, and where we are headed. After a few years reconciling with his preeminent experience, the realization of responsibility and obligation accompanying such an experience resulted in sharing the knowledge and wisdom he gained and the consequent writing of his book, Our Universal Journey. George knows he is here to assist humanity in reclaiming our sovereignty and transcending not only the earthly matrix, but also the cosmic matrix. Come for us as a human race to once again have access to the forgotten knowledge and wisdom of life. We are on the precipice of monumental change as the end of the cycle for life eternal draws near. It is a time when the veil is lifting and all will be revealed. Never has there been a time where the collective human consciousness has so reverently contemplated who we truly are, where we come from, what we are doing here, and where we are headed. Excuse me, that was a lot of information. I should read it again so you could digest it, but we're going to talk about it. George, it's it's tricky. We're doing what we can to get him in from Australia, and he may or may not make it. And if he doesn't, I will do what I can to get him rescheduled on a future date on a different system. But Blog Talk, I love you, Blog Talk, and you have your limitations. We used to be able to call Skype from the back end, but that no longer is available to us. So we're relying on George calling into the show. Karen, Christine Patrick, are you there?
I am. I'm having a little trouble hearing you. I'm not sure what the deal is. You're kind of popping in and out, so just FYI.
Okay.
Yeah, George,
what I
I
might
used
do,
to... Go ahead.
I'm thinking I should call in. I tried this direct connect, and it isn't quite as good. So let's do this for a couple minutes. We take a little commercial break, and I'll just call back in. You can talk while I call in.
Okay, yeah.
I want to hear what you have to say. So.
Oh yeah,
okay.
I listened to back in my awakening years. I listened to George. I was like going back to his material and remember how much I liked it because he talks about the fractal nature of the universe. And I was when I was in my awakening process, and especially in 2009, 2010, I was doing a lot of automatic writing, and my guys are talking about a fractal, universal view versus a fractional do, and that was a big insight for me because fractal, basically the universe is fractal. I mean, I was very fortunate when I was in college to get the very first couple of classes on fractal mathematics and when I was going for a computer science degree. And so I got just terribly interested in it because I struggled with math. I have math dyslexia, and I decided to gut it up and learn math. And that is probably the reason why. The entire reason why I studied math was to learn about fractal concepts. Mm-hmm. And it's the idea that the substructure of the universe, which is energy, forms in repeating patterns. So a good way to illustrate that was I came from, Timbertown, lumber area up there in Washington and Oregon, and they studied how trees grow. So if you plant one tree in a field, the next year, let's say it's 3 feet in height, okay? The next season, it will be like 6 feet in height, and it will make some baby trees, and they'll be 3 feet in height. And then the third year, the main tree will be like 12 feet in height, and the other ones will be 6 feet in height. So, and they'll be spread out in a fractal pattern like that. So nature kind of likes this repeatable pattern thing, where it iterates up in a pattern, how growth iterates up in a pattern, how when you have something round, it tends to be round from like our solar system, like our sun or the Earth is round, and all the way down to the atoms that are round. You know what I mean? The sun has things rotating around it, and the atom has things rotating around its nucleus. So these patterns tend to repeat. And what we have right now as a collective belief system is that we believe in fractional ideas. So fractional, the best way I've heard it to describe fractional versus fractal is fractional is, okay, we have a pie, and we're going to divide it up, and the more people who want some pie, the smaller the pieces have to be to accommodate everybody. Whereas a fractal view is make more pie. It's kind of eternal going up the scale and eternal going down the scale. And one person to help learn this from that's fantastic is Nassim Haramein. He dug into the physics and energy of it, and he has wonderful illustrations of how practicality
so this is like limitation and bounty. This is the two perspectives of this system, right?
And we are very invested in limitation right now because it's how our pyramidic, structure of power and money and everything is based on scarcity. And so, I think I talked a little bit about this yesterday with John and Brett. And I was reading about hurricanes and how if there's a hurricane coming and people have to leave, then the price of plywood goes up. And the reason why the price of plywood goes up is everybody's running around at Lowe's and Home Depot trying to get pieces of plywood to stick on their windows to protect their windows. And the prices go up because everybody wants it all at once because it's now scarce, And so that's the idea is that
it's economics 101.
Right.
Basic
supply
and
demand. Okay, so the problem with that, and I would say, kind of into that idea of sort of a conservative-minded person, physically conservative person. I was raised to look at things that way, is that people who think they believe that idea don't understand the manipulation that happens because of that. So, for instance, when I always tell the toaster example, so I bought a toaster when I got married, and I went to the first couple of years of marriage, my first marriage, I went to like 8 toasters. And my mother-in-law did not understand it. She thought maybe I was hitting with hammers or throwing around the kitchen or doing something horrible to my toaster. Because she bought a toaster back at the end of World War II when they went from making tanks to toasters. Okay, so she had this toaster. It was, it finally blew a fuse that was easily fixable by an electrician. And then it kept going. And the reason why is when they made that toaster, they wanted it to last. When they made my toasters, they wanted it to end up as garbage. So I buy a new toaster because I found out if they made the perfect washing machine, the Maytag guy's just sitting around with nothing to do, right? That famous commercial. So they began to put planned obsolescence into products. So they use cheaper materials, and literally they could figure out exactly when the toaster's going to fail. Like they got it down to a science, like 18 months or whatever. And that toaster's going to fail, and you're going to go buy a new toaster. So this is kind of horrific to somebody who really believes in renewable resources and good ecology and not filling up our landfill with useless stuff. We're at a crossroads where the corporatocracy runs that way. They want to keep us in consumerist modality. But we're just about at the end of that experiment, and it's a disaster because it has given us all of our ecological disasters as pollution, radiation, scarcity, economic failure. Because, you might come up someday and you can't buy that toaster. In fact, you might lose your house. I mean, we've gotten to the end of the experiment, and we've discovered that method does not provide for everybody. It doesn't work for everybody. It works great for the oligarchy because they're going off the charts richer, okay, but the rest of us are in a treadmill of consumerism, or worse yet, we're in what the people in the basic income call the precariat. In other words, really very hand-to-mouth precarious existence. So that's why that fractality idea is so important in so many ways, but in economic terms, it's like you immediately see what the problem is. You say, oh, wait a minute. How do we create and unravel the scarcity program, right? And think in terms of abundance, right? So you'd have to rethink everything from the ground up because we built our system on scarcity-mindedness. And I like to play with the word scarcity. It's to scare the city. So it's very fear-based. Right? It scares the city. And it comes back also to the idea of when cities used to be under siege, the army would surround it, and then all of a sudden, the prices of everything would go up, or they'd have to ration everything. And all they had to do was just make a city stay long enough without resources, and they would be scared into submitting. So it's a very old concept. Yeah, it's done economically
and
now.
Often they would go into submission, and they would open the gates, and they would be killed anyway. So it wasn't it's not a good outcome. So we could be scared into submission, and we're going to end up dead anyway. So we want to survive as individuals and as a species, and we need to move past the scarcity consciousness to the one of abundance, because the universe is abundant. But so I wanted to go back and where you're saying all this, and we're going to go into this in greater depth. But there's some, even though George couldn't get on the show today, I'll talk to him later. But we're talking about how he went out of his paradigm that he's a human being, a spirit in a soul in a form, a human, and he's being a human. So he took a journey with his consciousness and spirit through the dimensions of our universe and reintegrated with his soul. So this is an experience that we have of the fractal universe, that we are fractal, and we are a piece of our soul that's sent down into human form, just like the movie Avatar. And I heard they're going to do 3 more sequels or prequels or something to Avatar. So that'll be very interesting. But I've had remembered that I am, just like George, a piece of my soul, and I'm reintegrating. I have reintegrated many times, and it's profound. George discovered what life in this universe is all about and was able to once again remember who we all are, where we come from, what we are doing here, and where we are needed. So in my remembrance, I remembered oneness, and it's not just a new age hippie woo-woo concept. We have like the what we call it, the fish, salmon going upstream. We have a source. We have origination point, and there is oneness, and it's in our subconscious, and we're always wanting to go home. So there he was out in the universe, and he went back, and he reintegrated with his soul. He found out where he was, and he remembered. And so you have that remembrance of what we are and what we're doing here and where we're headed. Although the agreement is to be unconscious in this reality, this paradigm, this earth, this world, this planet. And so while you get that experience, and it's quite profound, there's still a part of you that just has to wake up and become, come back and be human. So I went to my friend's 80th birthday party yesterday, and it was very sad because I haven't seen the gang for about 5 years, and first of all, we've all aged. It's like once you get a certain point, over 50, over 60 or something, it's like the aging process accelerates. And if you look in the mirror from day to day, you don't even recognize yourself. You go, what is going on here? I take care of myself. I do A, B, C, D, and E. And then and I think that one of the conclusions we reached all looking at each other is like, there's chemtrails, there's poisons, there's toxins. There probably is accelerated exposure to, radiation in the cosmos, and there's the radiation we've created here. So something is going on that we are aging, all of us, rapidly, far more rapidly. So that's shifting, and that's something that's been observed before. So that's his avatar here. I wish he was here to have this conversation, but part of what we were getting was this information about the economy, the planet, the politics, the GMOs. Here in Maui, they voted GMOs out of existence, off the island, and what happened was Monsanto got together with the county, the government, these elected officials. Somewhere along the line, they've been bought out from the local government level to the presidents of the planet, if they ever were anything less than in service to self. There's a bunch of self-serving people, and somehow they hoodwink us and fool us into believing that they actually give a damn about us, and they get elected. I don't know if they really have that at some point or they got co-opted. But next thing you know, they're in the good old boys club, and it's us against them, and they basically are voting to exterminate us. The genocide, we get all pissed off when we think it's one group against the other genociding, the blacks, the whites, the orange, the pinks, the blues, right? But there's basically some faction, which we call the Illuminati, the Anunnaki, what do you call it? One of those interdimensional beings. Anyway, the Archon, some faction is definitely genociding humanity and keeping us in that lack and fear and consumerism. And what I noticed, it was my group of friends who are very spiritually advanced, and it was such a peaceful gathering. It was beautiful. Several times I was wiping tears from my eyes with this little Maui community here and what they have accomplished. But they've, none of them were aware of this information. That Karen and I and, John and Sasha and Brett and the other guests like George talk about. And it's sometimes shocking when you get out into the straight world and they don't have a clue or they have very little awareness. There was one fellow that came over and said, I'm aware of your work. I listened to your show. And we've been working on this really hard since 2012, broadcasting just about every day, just nonstop broadcasting. I'll let you talk for a while, Karen. I just wanted to say all that. Sorry I stole the ball, but it was just
no big
something
deal.
that was burbling.
Yeah. No, that's great. I was glad to hear a little bit about your event yesterday. No, that's fine. This is back and forth. This is how we talk, people. When we're not on the air. We just that's why I wanted to share what John and Brett and they were doing, because that's the way we have conversations. It's the real treat to have our experiencer friends to bounce these things off of, because, like you said, when you're in the straight world, the matrix world, you kind of look at something and you go, am I the only one that sees what's wrong with that? You know, how come people can't see the problem? A couple stories I read this week that, you know, kind of was like eyebrow raising. One of them was, I'm from the Portland area, and I used to work in the high-tech field there. Had a business, actually, for a long time. And they're having huge layoffs at Intel. And a lot of people being laid off right now have been working for the company for like 20-some-odd years. And so, you know, they've had their whole career at Intel, and now suddenly, probably about my age, they have to suddenly, you know, find a job. And I'm holding back, because these are some friends of mine, actually. I'm holding back sending them information about the basic income guarantee, because they're in scramble mode. I don't think they're real receptive. They're trying to get another job. But it's just, you know, I'm wondering if the reason why they're, you know, losing their job has to do with this technology robotization thing that is just burning down our necks. I mean, it's coming fast. And so it's shocking to just the average person that, you know, the high-tech, you know, world has been looking at the cold, dead eyes of robotization for a long time. You know, we make the things, right?
Right.
Robots that are made from technology. And it's there's actually a large contingent of people from the technology field who clearly see that it's just a matter of time where machines program themselves, you know. There was a long-standing idea that when you make a machine, you make that maybe replaces one job, right? You make another job, which is to program or, maintain the machine that you made, whatever it is. That is now becoming not true because of the robotization of the programming part itself. So as we look at AI coming on board, what you're looking at is someday that programmer won't be needed because with nanotechnology and artificial intelligence, these machines will be able to replicate themselves, repair themselves, and program themselves. Oh boy, now what? You know. So I'm watching it happen in that industry, and if it's happening there, it's happening with the driverless trucks and driverless taxi cabs, and there's a whole bunch of jobs going away. So we have our technology, happening. I almost look at it like a lot of us in the, alternative news world know that there's a lot of patents that were put in the black box. Were not given to humanity because they were classified. This might be one of the ways they're being released, is this rapid expansion of technology. So we're there now.
I want to address something.
Go ahead.
The smaller bits because it can be a long speech, as I think let's break it down a bit. Okay. So I've had this conversation with Sasha about artificial intelligence, and he thinks that, or we've come to the conclusion that, it's not artificial. Just because we're all God co-creating, just because it's another level of creating and co-creating, it's probably on some higher level of the original program to keep diversifying forms within which we can incarnate. So these forms aren't the most optimal forms. They grow old, they die, they have disease, and the stories of the Anunnaki, they didn't have to be. So we're definitely an evolved species. We're weaker, and most lifetimes have periods of pain. You and I have both had disease and illness and periods of pain. And I was talking to my friend yesterday, and he got a new hip, and he's like, I had this birth defect. I didn't even know, and it kicked in when I was in my 30s, and I walked around crooked for the last 20 years. It'll be 20 years. And I got a hip replacement. So I'm not going to talk about the hip. So we have parts. And so Jade Roddenberry back in 72, 3, 4, 5, something like that, he came to Pittsburgh. And he talked about the evolution of humans. And he thought that we would be more and more robotic. That's why his favorite character was Data. that would be a natural evolution. And so we've been playing with this roboticization process of our own human form for hundreds of years. Because look at glasses. That's the first step of being humans. We have something to assist our vision. We have things to assist our ears. And at first they're external, but there's like the cochlear implant. Now it's external. Now this person is part robot because he's got a heart. It's some kind of artificial heart or some kind of stimulation of the heart. My mother, this was 20 years ago, she had a internal defibrillator for when her heart would stop. It would just go bloop. She'd be sitting there in a chair talking. I was like, bloop, and I go, what's that? Oh, my defibrillator went off. And so we see more and more things happening when people are doing heart surgery now or organ replacement. They're making it on a printer, That's not organic. So we are gradually changing, hopefully, and then what part is human, or what does that even mean? I think it's all just consciousness looking for places to plop its consciousness, and it might be in these, robotic cyborg forms. Alfred Weber says that the black goo has already taken over, and Philip Corso said that when they gave the internet over to this transistors, the little chips that they found in the Roswell craft, they said it's alive. And we're not sure what it's going to mean, but we're going to do it because otherwise we're stuck. So there's times when species A gets stuck, and it needs another species to come around with the idea or the whatever, and you agree to go into this relationship. So we have been in this symbiotic relationship with whatever these things are that are in our cell phones and in our computers since, somewhere in the 40s after, or maybe early 50s after Roswell, when these nanobytes or these transistors or whatever they are got integrated into our technology. So we're already there. To be afraid of it, I think, is, bizarre. On some level, we created it all. Trust the process. And death is, what's the worst they can do? Kill us? Okay, yeah, we'll just go somewhere else. And anyway, I'll give it back to you. I'll give the ball back to you for a few. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I think you and Sasha really had a good conversation going there. will know this, but for double amputees, they made these cheetah legs. They're based on the cheetah, which is the fastest mammal on land, and they made these, cheetah legs that they put on these double amputee people so they can run. And they actually now exceed regular undisabled humans. Well, what's the word, disabled, right? People who do not have these cheetah legs do not run as fast as the people with the cheetah legs. So we've had this crossover. There's one of the TED Talks. There's this lady who is very famous. She's a model, actually, and she had legs for herself made by different artists. So she has glass ones. She has wooden carved ones that have beautiful inlaid carving. And she has legs that make her taller, so she can actually increase her height and be a super tall, thin model, right? So she was, she was talking about, okay, what is human, what isn't. I know a lot of people are afraid of transhumanism. Maybe because I'm a technology geek, I have a different viewpoint. I think one thing about human beings is that, according to the Anunnaki story, we've been curtailed back on our intelligence and our lifespan and our ability to heal ourselves. So, in my opinion, the humanoid genome is a technology, right, that's evolved for millions of years. And why we don't see machine entities all over the place is the fact that it actually is a superior technology that's self-replicating. So if we think of our own biology as a self-replicating machine, it's superior, except that we've had interference with our ability to, at higher levels, use our psychic powers at higher levels to live long and recover from injury has been cut back. you know. So that's something to think about, is that the idea of machines replicating parts of us sounds more appealing because it's just like that prosthetic legs that the lady gets, just because she had something, she was an accident, she lost those abilities, then she was given a replacement that turns out to be a superior thing. So we kind of have the same dynamic going. But my daughter was born with multiple disabilities. She was, one of them was hydrocephalus. She was born with spina bifida and hydrocephalus, and they put a shunt in, which was designed by an engineer, a hydraulic engineer who had a child like my daughter, probably like 40 years ago, something like that. And he asked the surgeons, like, well, what's the problem here? And it's, well, the child gets intracranial pressure from too much fluid in the brain because the normal areas where the fluid drains are damaged. So he invented this shunt device, which has given many of these kids a chance to have a normal life. And then, so that is an innovation that was replacing something that doesn't work. And she also has Harrington rods in her spine, which are two titanium rods that go up and down her back because her spine was not formed correctly, and she had severe scoliosis. So, you know, should we deny that to people? I don't know. But I think.
I think that's. Hell no. Here's a man whose motivation wasn't money, wasn't fame. It was to help, and I think that's what we need to do as a species. Is we're in a money world, and we need to have money to go get our Starbucks, whatever. However, as much as possible in our little puny lifespan, you know, do what you can to love and help your fellow human being. And here's now, it's the love of a father for a child, but wouldn't it be great to have that level of love for someone just because they're in your world, you're aware of them, you're conscious of them, and help them on that level? I'm going to go invent something. There was a YouTube I watched recently where there was one young man who was a complete stranger to another young man who he wanted to walk again. He wanted to walk, right? And this guy just saw him on YouTube saying, I will walk again. This man was determined. I don't know how. I've been hitting this chair for 5 years, and yet I know I will walk again. So the person number 2 saw that and launched a campaign for him. And he needed, one of those machines where they can, or I don't know what it is, some kind of extension of the body where you wear it, can walk, can stand and walk again. You learn how to walk. So it was like $50,000 or something. And so this person B made it happen for person A, and they weren't related by blood. They never met. He just said, I'm going to make this happen for this person that I saw on the internet. And wouldn't it be great as a world if we'd moved past, well, I got to do that only because, I'm going to get some money for it, or I know them. Just move past all that and do what you can. That's contributionism. That's what I see what the message of Star Trek was, and I am a Star Trek fan back to 1966. This is my 50-year anniversary as a Trek fan. I was there at the beginning, and I saw the very first episode live. And I think it was September, I don't know, I have to look up the date. Yeah. But that's the timeline that we were on as a species. And I invite everybody to join that timeline again and go back to Star Trek and do it individually. And there's a critical mass. Just do it with the faith that at some point when I walk that talk of Star Trek in reality where everybody gets their needs met and people are motivated like, I'm going to go join Starfleet. I'm going to explore the universe. I'm going to be a doctor. Everybody gets to do what they feel motivated to do. And guess what? I've been a doctor for 20 years. Now I want to be an Indian chief. Now I want to be this. I mean, you can change just because you pick a profession. And that was also the world reality. I just want to give credit to it because I know the veil's getting thin, to one of my other teachers, Robert Rimmer. And Robert Rimmer wrote the Herod Experiment, which was about a fictitious college somewhere up in New England. And people, along with their regular studies, studied consciousness, studied Tantra, and they lived in a polyamorous type relationship. And they didn't have the word back then. They lived in the men and women sharing dorms. And they explored their sexuality. What would happen if they all lived in a, what's that term when you have male and female? Anyway, there's a term for it. A co-ed dorms. And it was an experiment. And they studied Tantra, and they studied sexuality. And then this whole new consciousness emerged from that type of studies, the esoteric studies, along with, the math and sciences and the practical things. And it was just a brilliant book. And he helped us evolve. And that was the point. His perspective was college education up to your PhD was free education, and everybody could follow their heart's desire of what they really wanted to do at the end of the road, to have a full and happy and blissful life, doing the best you can. Anyway, it was wonderful. It was a brilliant book. I highly recommend it. It's called The Herod Experiment, and it was written in 1962. Some things never go out of style. Back to you, Karen.
Oh, I love you talk about science fiction, because I was a huge Trekkie, probably from the same day, but I was a little kid. So because we had the moon landings and we had Star Trek, my perspective was we're absolutely I was going to work in space. I was going to be up in a space station. When I saw Star Trek and I saw Mr. Spock, I was a total fan of Mr. Spock. I had to know what computers were about. But when I started in computers, and you and I have that in common, I mean, we were still like on punch cards, we didn't have, a computer in your pocket like you do with in your smartphones and whatnot. But we just knew, and you could extrapolate. Okay, we had a giant, huge room that was one computer, and then about when I came on the scene in high school, there was the desktop, and then the laptop, and then your smartphone. And so I did. I studied computer science. I was ill my last year of college. I didn't finish computer science, but I got enough under my belt to be partner with my first husband in computer business. So I stuck pretty close to, hey, what's going on with technology? And that's been great. And I embrace robotics. I embrace the next, steps, because my great-grandfather was an inventor. He was he had the patent for the signal for when you come up, you're going to cross a road, but it's got a railroad crossing, and this little bar thing comes down and stops you.
Yes.
Yeah, some people didn't know a train was coming, and they got squashed, and they had to pay, some kind of settlement to the family. So he was part of the railroad. He worked with the Rockefellers, and he was part of the railroad business, and invented that signal. And of course, it saved the railroad companies, a lot of money in lawsuits. And he basically was very wealthy. But his Rockefeller friends, he was a very honest person. They knew they could not control him. If they needed, they'd like to have controls on people, know what their peccadillos are, and use it against them, use their addictions and whatnot at that time. And so what they did was he moved up to them as being financiers and his rich friends, and they helped make him all this money. They said, okay, we think you should sell your patent and buy stock. And I mean, we're talking months before the Great Depression. The stock crashed, right? So they already knew this was coming when they told them this. And they just rolled them. And the family, my grandmother was told us, and they ended up under a bridge, which is, when people are under a bridge, at least in their cars under a bridge. We have the same scenario right now. So we have this deprivation. So our money system has not evolved. It's not, we might have it on digits on our computer and in the bank account, that you can check on your smartphone. We might have digitized it to a certain extent, but the distribution of it has not kept up with the needs of the average person. we have such great disparities, which to kind of dig into this and see what's hidden under the surface of the precariat. That's the people who live a precarious existence. Right now, in Alberta, Canada, they had 80,000 people had to leave the city, and the fire swept right through the downtown. And I'm thinking to myself, Canada wants to start a basic income, experiment. I said, start right there. Give those people a card where they get so much per month, because they could literally go rent a house or buy a RV to live in or something like that until they can find out if they still have a house and can get on their feet. So, we have horrendously complex problems after disasters, hurricanes, and things like that, because the monetary system doesn't keep up. It's based on this, you go to work, you get your paycheck, and you have to already be stable in order to stabilize yourself. It's a chicken and the egg and the cart and the horse problem. And our money is literally just behind the times, because it is, again, based on scarcity. And it's coming to a, Ponzi scheme kind of disastrous collapse by many, many economic, measures. So in Star Trek, that universe, it really is our universe if we choose it. We have to participate in that, right? We have to contribute and believe and make demands of our leadership to catch up to the times. We've got new forms of money called like Bitcoin, digital currency. Our money needs to catch up with the times, and the big thing, it just needs to catch up with if we're going to have a monetary system, which, is what it is. Everyone, it's like playing Monopoly. If everybody in the room is going to play Monopoly, they got to have some Monopoly money. That's just the way it is. I think we should graduate from that.
Well, let me interject here. I was on Johnson Atoll for a while there. Now, what they gave us as an employee on Johnson Atoll, which is a military base 800 miles southwest of of Hawaii in the Pacific Ocean. It's the most remote location on the planet. But we got everything. We had free place to live. Everything we wanted to eat was free. We had all the entertainment we wanted. There were free movies every night, free television. You had to buy the television, but you had free broadcasting. You could go bowling and golfing and whatever sports you wanted to play was free. The only thing you had to buy is if you went to the bar, you had to buy your own booze. But they had free karaoke and free. I mean, it was just amazing. So I experienced that. So why work? Well, people went there, and they would make $100,000 a year. Well, that's a lot of money. Most people make what, $20,000, $30,000 a year if they're lucky. I was a secretary. Now I didn't get one of the 100,000 jobs, but I was there in the bidding. So it was, people were always coming and going, and it was just a matter of time, maybe a year, and I'd end up with this job making $100,000 a year, and I had zero expenses. And it was like, duh. So a lot of people worked there, and they retired little millionaires. That's how they became little multimillionaires, and now retired, and they ended up. The problem was there were a huge amount of toxins there. Radiation left over from an atomic explosion in the 60s. And I'm sure it had detrimental effects because I followed the story, and people would leave. And they would, die soon. They would have cancers and mysterious deaths. And it was like, okay, so. But I chose not to go down avenues. And that was in 97 when I left. So I've got 20 years of living after that. The point being is that was working. And then look at Star Trek. And Star Trek doesn't have money yet. The first and second series, they didn't have money. They introduced the Ferengi when they went to Deep Space Nine, and they brought in some monetary-based systems. But people didn't really have to do money on the on the Enterprise and stuff like that. So that was some kind of credit-based system or needs-based system. I guess if you're a Trekkie, I have to look into it. There are people who have documented and cataloged everything about Star Trek as if it wasn't real, but what makes it not real anyway? So as a reality, and they have the whole economics and the monetary system and the mechanics of how the craft works. So I should consult a modern Trekkie that has all the information. Point being, there are ways of doing this, and I'll just finish with Alex Collier, who's a major conscious contactee. He says that the extraterrestrials do not use money, and they're just puzzled. Like, what is this money stuff? Why do you human beings have such an attraction for it? You know, how does it serve you? None of the species in space, spacefaring species, use money. So back to you, Karen.
Oh, this is such a great conversation because as I was making I was at the time that I was making pretty heavy duty contact and was doing a lot of automatic writing and really getting an education. At the time, I was also having a very difficult time, getting employed and whatnot. I had been a computer science person, then I was a caregiver, and that was my main kind of job, Then I wasn't a caregiver anymore, and I was a middle-aged lady, and that's one of the least employable type of people you can be, by the numbers. I think it's like two-thirds of the people in poverty are women that are middle-aged or going into middle age. So, dynamically, my generation, my level, I became precariat. I'm in the precariat. I'm struggling. I'm kind of whining, actually. Like, I feel yeah, my guys want me to really, get the message out and do some stuff. But dang, it requires a computer and pay for a connection and, stuff. Not a lot, but some. And so I was saying, how am I supposed to do this, in this situation? I says, can you help me figure out how to make the money? And they're like, how quaint. They use the word quaint. And I was like, and it reminds. Then later on, when John tells us about the blue people experience he has, where they're kind of holding this money out at the gate to get into the UFO conference, they're like, is this enough? Like their whole, if we had foreign money, we didn't know what the exchange rate was, but we're like, is this enough? Because money is a measure of scarcity. If you have a lot of something, you just give it away for free. You don't need to measure it with money. If you have a if you have a dirt is is kind of almost free, really, because you just go outside and get some, right? But if it's gold or platinum or something like that, even though it's a mineral just like dirt, it's real expensive because it's hard to get and hard to refine, and it's been as a scarcity, right? Diamonds, people don't realize this, are an artificial scarcity because every single diamond is monitored and has a number on it, because a while back they started being able to make artificial diamonds for diamond cutters and for drill bits and whatnot. So they had to make sure that the ones that get out of the ground were not mistaken for the ones that they were making. So they've got a whole system to make it scarce and continue to make it a scarcity. If you get really deep into the literature of our monetary system, and there's a lot of information if people want to dig around in there, apparently the gold and silver market and real estate markets and quite a few markets of very expensive stuff has been manipulated so that it's artificially high,
Right.
So it's kind of like, and also people learn this, like Basic Marketing 101. You want to say, I have the exclusive view on this thing. I know, if you're going to market yourself as an expert, you're going to make sure you use words like exclusive, one of a kind. I'm the only one. I'm the premier one, And
right.
that's why I've struggled with this type of material that we talk about, because to me, if anyone has the eyes to see, it's as readily available in the universe as you'd ever want. So how do you put a price on something that anybody could access if they got out of the scarcity mindset? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure you've noticed that.
Well, it's a program. I was talking to somebody, you, and there was somebody else about, how I was programmed. I can remember the programming. I was put in front of the television, in front of I Love Lucy, Leave It to Beaver, the Nelsons, what was it, Romper Room, Disney, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, all these different shows, Bullwinkle. These were shows that were programming me into a certain paradigm of reality. And the I Met Lucy, if you look back at Lucy, was very abusive. Ricky was abusive.
Oh, yeah.
There was an episode where Ricky spanked Lucy. Lucy was treated like a second-class citizen, like a slave, and her job was to just serve this man and make him breakfast and dinner and lunch and clean his house and pop out babies. And, you know, it was just, you look back at that whole reality that was artificial.
Yeah.
And it was the dawning of materialism. You had to have a nice house and keep up with the house, and then you had Hazel, and this household had a maid, and yada, 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 yada. So, meanwhile, my mother didn't pay any attention to me. And she's 2 rooms away, and she was my handler looking back on it with the, ritual abuse, and she's watching her programming. And the two of us for hours were in 2 separate rooms, and I was not to do anything other than just sit there and be a good girl. So I was programmed to be a good girl. And so it's amazing I could function at all. If you think back of it, like television, is that something you would really want to do with your child? Is sit them in front of television, no matter what era? What about reading with them? What about playing with them? Some kind of human interaction. So I think that they took over basically after, Roswell. I have an inside story. I'm trying to get the person to come out and tell her story, but she's got a lot of programming, so she starts to tell her story. Part of the programming of the Illuminati is that they, or whoever these people are, is that the interviewer encounters the program, and then the person just segues all over the place, and they stop making sense, and they can't keep track. And that's built in. That's intentional.
Yeah.
That's not that person's crazy. It's like, no, they build in these things so the person will not tell the story, and yet the person has the need to tell, the need to be witnessed, and so they create the schism, and they're difficult. And it takes a lot of therapy. This programming is that it was all about scarcity, materialism, lack. But it's just a program. It's nothing more than a program. And at any point, one of the things I learned, we had a nice conversation with Tulik, is at 4, because I'm in the midst of this program, and I'm getting programmed every day, and we have our extraterrestrial, eternal being, whatever you want to call them. They're all extraterrestrial because they're not of this planet. But, that's angels, that's guides, that's, you can demonize it or you can make it something beautiful. So there are these beings. They do exist. They are apparently external, but they're also us. We are they. And there's really no separation at the highest level. So that faction, because I agreed to come down and be a human avatar and experience consciousness or unconsciousness in human form, would periodically take me home and recharge me. So I could go back and do another day. I could back in the trenches. We who have come here to Earth to do this are heroes. We're on a hero's journey. And we're here to wake up this planet and everybody in it, because it's the most diverse, beautiful planet in existence. It's the end result of billions and billions and trillions of years of experiment in consciousness and diversification of creatures of existence, of, its ultimate beauty. And we're devolving and witnessing the devolution and the destruction, and yet it's not over till the fat lady sings, and we can pull it back. So here we are, waking up one at a time, day after day, becoming aware that we're eternal beings having human experiences. And so that's what my recharging on the ship was. They would bring me up and they'd recharge me and give me an attaboy, good girl, you go back in and do it. And you're going to meet the other people, and this is going to happen on a huge level. And, it'll come out the other side, but it's a process. It's a process. That's what people will see. When. It's a process, and nobody can tell when a process is over. But like the Berlin Wall, that was a process. When that Berlin Wall process was over, by the end, in the morning there was one reality. By the end of the day, it was another. Yeah. And it was a transformation and positive. Now we have a lot of examples of those days, like 9/11. And those who woke up to go to work on 911 were in a different reality. At the end of the day, a lot of them were dead, and the other ones were forever affected, and they moved into another reality. And that was a hijacking of our reality. That wasn't where we were heading. We allowed it on some level to be hijacked. And we allowed it what? You ask yourself, why in the world would we, as a species, as a continuum, allow these things to happen? Well, look at what has emerged. There's been a huge growth of technology. So these negative, horrific things, there's always two sides to every coin. There's things that came out of World War II. I was very nostalgic, and you said your dad was in World War II, because you're much younger than me. But anyway, there was a beautiful lady at the party yesterday, and her mother and father were in Auschwitz. They're Jewish in Auschwitz. The father got relocated to a concentration camp in Italy. My father was first in, last out. He was drafted very early on, and he was stationed in Italy. And my father said that his platoon, I guess, or whatever they call them, I'm not a military person, was liberating the people that were in concentration camps. So he witnessed it. It's not a myth, people. My dad witnessed it. He was there. It was horrendous. And then I heard from Tess about her mother's story. Her dad got released first, probably by my dad. This is how small the world is. And her dad immediately walked barefoot across the Alps and was there in time for his future wife to be liberated. And he found her again. They had fallen in love, and they got married, and they ended up here in America. So that's an incredible story. And I'm talking to this woman who's now in her 50s, I guess. Yeah, she's right in her 50s. And she's just a beautiful singer and beautiful being. And yet, when you go to these stories, because it's in our cells, it's a cellular memory. So she was a child that came out of that womb of those people that created her, that were Jewish, that suffered these atrocities. And so it was a cellular memory. So her mother is still alive. She's 92, and she wakes up and says, why am I here? She sleeps 20 hours a day, but she still wakes up. She says, I'm not over there. What is going on? Why am I still here? And we need to stop this. This is horrendous. This is genocide. This is cruel. None of this is necessary. From the wars down to the medical conditions that people are diseases and a disease of aging. None of us have to suffer that. Our governments are holding us captive, us hostage, because all these cures and all these remedies are already known, and they're keeping us in this reality where we suffer. Why? Because the archonic energy feeds off it. We are their food, and it's not chopping us up and making hamburger out of us. It's about feeding off the energy we create from our anxiety and stress. And Karen, you were talking about that. Tell our people. So you go where you want, but you might want to just.
Oh yeah, no, I'd be glad to. I have to say that my partner Brett Collins Shepard was in Germany when the wall came down. He was the United States Army soldier. He was stationed in the Czechoslovakia border of the wall. And a lot of people don't remember this, but it was actually really a scary time because we always had concerns of what would trigger World War III, and we didn't know if another war with bullets flying was going to happen along that border with the instability of the situation. But instead, the German people themselves tore down the wall and had a big old party, and it was such a positive thing. And the wall was built the year I was born, so that's the only thing I've ever remembered is that wall being there. And, it was a scary time and then suddenly very joyful. So, you know, when Reagan said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall, in other words, that was going to be proof that the time or the Cold War was going to be, you know, over, and we were going to take a step towards, you know, a more peaceful world. And we took a step backwards, I suppose, at 9/11. So you know, it's kind of darkest before the dawn. But I'm with you. I think 9/11 was pretty horrendous, meant for fomenting war and distrust. But somehow underneath it all, I think humanity is getting a bit of a distaste for it, you know. I believe in humanity. I'm kind of a Pollyanna type person. But you're talking about Star Trek. There's a wonderful in the old Star Trek, you know, episodes where the captain and a few of his officers and a bunch of Klingons, the captain and his officers get stuck with each other, and this other being, this energy being, was feeding off of their anger and hatred for one another. So they decide to pretend to buddy up, and they shake hands and laugh and, you know, create an atmosphere of positive, you know, emotions. And it sort of starves the thing out. So, and they tease it and mock it, and it decides to leave.
It leaves, right.
I love that.
I'm going to try to find that while we're talking.
Oh, I know. You and I have to, we should just do reviews of old Star Trek episodes for some shows, because they're so illustrative of some amazing, you know, Gene Roddenberry, of course, was way ahead of his time. Some people don't know that he was part of a group that was involved in the channeling of extraterrestrial intelligence called the Nine, and that he actually apparently got downloads, or someone got some downloads and gave him information about the future. He picked a lot of the very prescient, far-reaching science fiction authors like Harlan Ellison and others to do episodes for the show, and Arthur C. Clarke and different ones. And so it was such a way ahead of its time kind of viewpoint, and it did show what I've heard him speak on. I had a record by him where he was speaking in it today. And he believes in a positive future, because we did have that Cold War thing going on. And he looked past our warring, glaring at each other in the eyeballs, you know, facing each other down in a war stance, to a positive future where we had provision for everybody, like you were talking about. I love it when John Luke's card goes up and he goes, "Gray Halt," and a cup of tea comes out, because I love that kind of tea, and it's pretty awesome. They had replicators.
What did he do? Say that again? The replicator, yeah.
Yeah, when he wanted a cup of tea, he'd go, "Earl Grey Halt," just like that. This steaming cup of tea would come out, and I love Earl Grey, so I thought that was cool. But the replicator technology, I need to tell people that they need to be paying attention to something kind of cool, is that we have the makings of that replicator technology with the 3D printers and that technology. And that's going to change manufacturing quite a bit, because we can program it in what we want to have built. And you can literally go to this website called Shapeways, ShapeWays.com. And if you put in like you want a little action figure or something of yourself, you know, and you can program it in as a program, you can send it to Shapeways and have it 3D print your little action figure of yourself and have it sent in the mail to you. So you don't even have to have the printer anymore. So I thought that was kind of cool. That replicator technology is going to really change manufacturing. You know, instead of having a drawer full of can openers or something, you're going to, you know, or some weird part like that you need for something and you can't buy it anywhere. Sometimes you have to go hunting for parts. You should literally print this thing. And I want to go back to what you said earlier about how they're replicating replacement, their jaw broken or something, and they can take a CT scan of the person's jaw and make a part that, you know, goes back in the jaw and actually makes it fixed, repaired with this 3D technology. So we're there, folks. We're in the replicator timeline. Except that right now we're doing it with plastic and cement and even chocolate. I've seen them make stuff out of chocolate, yummy. But also one day we'll learn to do this at an energy level where we can take energy and turn it into matter. And then it becomes Star Trek world. What we know of the secret space program and the breakaway civilization is this stuff already exists over in that, part of the known universe. It's just that we don't know about it. Just like we have cars and roads and helicopters, and people in the jungle of the Amazon don't necessarily know about that because they're not around it every day. Reschedule and others have talked about the breakaway civilization and been hints of that. If you didn't catch the movie, what was it, Elysium? Oh my gosh, where the people in the cloud cities had technology to heal people, and they kept it from the people that were down on the ground working every day, the working scum,
yeah,
and
what's going on actually, huh?
Yeah, exactly. And this woman, figures out a way to help get her daughter up to the cloud city, and her daughter has a terminal illness, and she gets the girl healed. And then, the end of the movie, they realize they got to share what they've got. And I wonder if that's even true with the breakaway civilization. That's still a part of humanity out there connected to us. It's all connected. Somewhere in our heart, maybe why you and I got so excited about Star Trek, is somewhere in our soul, we know that that's real. That's why people get excited about it.
I knew it. I was, sometimes I get into like a time warp, and I woke up one time and I said, honey, we're dead. I'm looking back right now. We're already dead. I'm looking back with great nostalgia about when we were alive. I'm somehow in two timelines right now, and I don't know what's going on here. It was the most bizarre thing, and he never judged me. He goes, hey, tell me what's going on. And so we looked at it, and I said, well, it makes me want to cry because I'm nostalgic about, this life we lived and how that was very interesting. And I have those moments even now, like as Janet the Human looking back. I'll be looking back at the 60s or something, or sometime when we were kinder to each other, and then the tears just well up in my eyes. I go, what? I'm becoming such an emotional softie. But I think that might be part of the ascension process because you get more empathetic. And I just have this great empathy for humanity and who and what we are and we were and who we can become. And we're right now so many people, and I'm not going to include I, because I'm like on the outside looking in type of thing. And I think that's what we talked with Andy Bishago and other people, and Alfred Weber, and talking about there's some people that are already like half ascending, they're outside of the matrix, and they're having this phenomenon. If I'm not the only one, it's like we're having this phenomenon, being in more than one timeline or one perspective, and it's very poignant. It's very salient, and it's like, what is going on here? And then you push that pull together. You criticize yourself. You go, oh, knock it off, go back. You're just a human being. We're self-censored all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to speak, and then I'll pass the ball back to you. I've had over the years a great number of downloads on the new society or the society, how it exists on other planes, and how, and this is like an answer to a prayer. How do we do this? How do we go from this planetary system, which extraterrestrials don't use, and here we're using it, and it creates a horrendous harm and slavery and pain and, lots of pain, people dying of diseases that are all curable, like Elysium. You don't have to be suffering the pain, anguish, the physical pain, and the anguish of losing a child to cancer. What torture we're doing to human beings. None of this is necessary, and yet it repeats over and over and over. Yesterday, watching my 80-year-old friend and all of his friends being in such, loving and caring, yet pain and anguish because they're viewing this once a leader who's very vital. He's a doctor, he's a And here he is, you know, a puddle of his former self. It's just, so it's horrible. So, anyway, I just got distracted by a date. So, in this new society, the transition society, it's called the transition society. Basically, there's no need for anyone to be homeless. Let's just approach that, homelessness. There's absolutely zero need. Because there's plenty of stuff already built. And in this society, everything would be in a database, places for you to live, and then it would the whole thing would be equalized. Because right now, when you have, and we talked about this in the shows, we're going to give $2,000. Well, $2,000 for everybody on the planet. Let's just say everybody on the planet, because this is a global system. This isn't just the United States. It's become so self-apparent, so evident that this is a global society. And the way that we create slavery is we put, you know, all the production of products in a third world country, and we give them, you know, 50 cents an hour, you know, and that's slavery. That just creates slavery somewhere. So if we pull it together as a global society, it is one big global economic system. We have the illusion it's separate, but no. When something happens in another part of the world, it affects us here because it is a global society, and it affects us adversely. So why would we want to cooperate with everybody over the planet? Because we are one people. That's one good reason. Just look at that. But and part of this scenario you and I were talking about earlier is that there's a teleportation system. We have a teleportation system. I think one of the basic human rights is the right to travel, the right to see the planet. So you could really live in China. That's where you sleep at night. But during the day with teleportation, you could come over here to the U.S. You could go down to, you know, South Africa. You could have all these experiences, and then you come back to where you call home, and you have your few material things, and then you go to sleep at night. So this database would have every place that you could possibly be and possibly go to, and just like the what do they call that? The couch surfers. You know, you could go on and say, "What's available today? Where can I go hang out today? What's available?" And it would be available. You know, these places would be available because you would get. And then part of it would be like a Putu, and the contribution is, and what would you like to do? And, you know, hopefully we'll end up at the end of the day not all going to the beach and surfing. But, I really would like to help somebody today. Because we're still going to need help. We need human interaction. We need someone to, you know, carry the bags up the steps. That's right now I'm getting old. I have a giant set of steps I have to come up from my parking lot. And every time I come home with groceries and things, I go, oh, my God. Am I going to be able to do this when I'm 80? Anyway, back to you, just two thoughts. I'm not getting as great a clarity with this because I'm getting a distraction with somebody dinging my phone, trying to figure out how to block that while still on the radio. Go ahead, Karen.
We're juggling our technology. Well, yeah, I mean, one thing I became aware of when I spent 7 years living on boats. Yes, I did that. And a boat is a thing where you know, untie the rope, go to your shipboard systems, take off, and you have to have your own, you know, fully functional system to live the way we like to live. So I became aware of what those living systems are, and it's, you know, your source of water, very important how you deal with sewage and any kind of garbage or energy system, your stores, what you've got stored up, you know, for provisions for, you know, keeping the thing all running, you know, infrastructure. There's all these different systems to basically have a home. And what happens in this transition thing is that we're going to go through stages of where provisioning right now is got built-in scarcity, consumables rather than renewables. You know, our systems are, you know, built not necessarily to provision us well and continually, but to enrich someone profitability-wise. So we've gone away from, you know, and I think for me, enjoyed doing historical reenactment because I was fascinated with how did people do things on an everyday level back in the day. And we have massive knowledge lost. You know, we think we're very modern and cool, but I mean, the second the power's cut, we're reduced below that level of our ancestors because they knew how to. They knew where the water was coming from. They already had their, you know, meals stored up because they were growing their own and trading with their neighbors. I mean, they were, even in the Great Depression, they were better off in a lot of ways than we are now because the community itself had local sourcing for almost everything you needed if people banded together, which they did. So that's the thing, is that now you're going to look at, we don't have to go back to those days necessarily to be provisioned, but we can certainly learn from that. And you and I had a conversation before we got on air about just the food situation, how Sasha had come to the conclusion that we probably need to start growing our food underground because of the fact that we have a very much more toxic environment than we really realize, with the fact that we've got the years and years now of GMO crops, fertilizers, radiation, and, you know, chemical kinds of stuff. And in the past, Brett and I looked at the cyclical history of man. We've gone underground because if there's an ice age, you obviously can't grow crops very well or even live in those kinds of temperatures. So you were either migratory or we really believe that the whole underworld, underground story is not at all allowed to percolate up to the surface. It's definitely been buried, pardon my pun, historically about the long periods of time that humans have been underground. And I just posted to Earth Anomaly Research Society on Facebook about the cities in Turkey that they found underground that could hold like 20,000 people. I mean, that's a lot. So people didn't just go there to escape a storm or something. They were down there a while and made it work. So, you know, so right off the bat, we would need some changes. We just need to make some changes. We allow the Earth to correct itself in terms of all the toxins, or we come to some way to start doing the cleanup, which we haven't even started. The pollution has reached a high pitch, as a matter of fact. But if we decided to make that transition, then we'd need to look at how we do water systems, you know, how to purify water, how to not pollute water anymore, not to allow it to be made a scarcity by the corporations gobbling up the water and reselling it to us in bottles, which is like kind of horrifying on the scale that we have right now. You know.
Try leaving your bottled water in your car for a while and you just drinking toxins.
It's
like,
gross. You can't. No, ick.
Gross.
Yeah. And there's chemicals in the bottles. You know, it's just awful. So each of these systems, the food and the sewage, how we do sewage, where we would use it as a renewable, because they used to do that, you know. Human poo, cow poo, chicken poo was all used in the garden, in the cross back in the day. And, you know, we need to rethink all those systems towards not consumable based, but renewable based would be the first thing. And then either the technologies that we think exist, I think that the breakaway civilization does live like Star Trek, I really do. Either they become released to us or they just simply get us used to the idea with this, you know, slowly. So it's not so big of a shock. I tell you what, though, little kids will get it immediately. Just give them the stuff, they'll get it. You know, like you hand them the phone to get them to program it, right? Like the kids they're ready to do this. They're ready to go, that knowledge. And we could turn things around very quickly, but the problem is in between our ears, how we think. Because we've got to just deeply realize how we are the reason, the way we do society, make homelessness and scarcity happen. We do participate in it. And it's not our fault. Like, we got guided and programmed that way. But it is our responsibility to try and turn it around, even if it's just talk about it to start or learn about it to start.
There's no one's guilty. No, we created this. We all created this paradigm together to maximize diversity and creation. So we can forgive each other. And some people volunteer to be the bad guys, the demons in the play, and we can forgive each other. It's time to unilaterally set aside our swords and our differences and first start forgiveness. We may not be able to do the physical interaction where we're not actually shooting each other, but on a conscious, subconscious, spiritual level, we can start leaving each other forgiveness. I love you, I accept you, I bless you, I forgive you. And it does affect everything. We are in a non-local universe, and thoughts are deeds. And by starting that forgiveness process, we do actually start making a change. That's step one. And I'm inviting everybody to do this forgiveness process.
Yeah.
Since we all agreed to do this. Yeah.
We can.
I have that here. And I was talking about that. I have in my own. The microcosm affects the macrocosm. And here in my local community, I've become a hermit because the moment I go out into the world, I encounter the complaints and the complexities of life because it is getting harder and harder because of this perception of lack and shortage and duality and hierarchy. And you're better or you have more or you have less or yada, yada, yada. So I've been very hermetic. It's like, I don't want to go into town. I might run into somebody. And I'm even on the conscious level. I don't want to go into town. It's too complicated. So I went out yesterday, and I haven't been out in ages, and I haven't been to a public gathering in ages. And so it was delightful when it was very peaceful. I was happy to see that. But that's not my norm. My norm is full of people with complaints about this, that, and the other thing. And, I had a woman call me today because I'm a therapist, a counselor. It's not that I make a living doing it, but once you are who you are, I'm a therapist, counselor, people come to me for spiritual advice and counseling, therapy. And so when they call, I feel them. I hear them. I sense things. I'm very psychic. And before I knew it, we got into the conversation. And she had been satanically ritually abused. And I didn't even get into the depth of her story, but she started sobbing. She said, oh, there's someone out here that understands. And I do understand because I went through that as a child. I was in a community that was extremely perverse, and I know you did, Karen. People were ritually abusing the children in the Leave It to Beaver, our Lucy neighborhood. That illusion of what my reality was, it had all kinds of perverse things going on. So we dealt with it, and we had these experiences, and then we went back home and watched TV and slept, and we got up and went to school. And it was just life. It's like, what was that? A lot of times you just didn't even have time to react. You just had to go, okay, I'm going to run home. I remember there was a girlfriend, and the guys got her. I was telling my husband this. I said, I'm thinking back on it. It's so surreal. The guys grabbed her, and they were going to gang rape her. And I went home. I left, and I thought, well, you didn't do anything. I go, there was no one to tell. Going on everywhere. It was the usual thing. All the best you could do was turn around and get the hell out of there before they came and got you. And I never talked about it. Yeah. I never talked about it. And here I am, 50 years later, and I'm telling my husband, he goes, oh, my God. And it was just so, common. This is what goes all the time. That they take somebody, they get you separate, and then you're getting gang raped. And that was the so-called peaceful time where life was beautiful on this planet, but it was anything but. It's sad. It's really sad when I think back on it. Yeah. Sorry it goes so dark, people.
No, I think that's not bad because the thing is we got to transmute that. That's what we're working on. This isn't game time. We're working on transmuting that back to your regular reschedule programming, which is pretty shitty stuff, frankly. We've got to find some way to go, okay, either that's going to destroy you mentally and you're going to go be an addict or kill yourself or, do omega programming, take yourself out in some way, check out in some way, or you're going to have to find a way to process the unprocessable almost, And so that's why people wonder, like, how did you get from, that to ET or, the kind of fringy stuff you get to. It's like, where else are you going to go? Because once you recognize that Archon level is impinging, and we're participating with that Archon level, and the Archon means arch over or power over. It's like a rape is a power thing. It's a power trip. Having ultimate power over someone. Most abuse is actually like that. And you can look kind of past the human involved, in a sense, and see them as extensions of something else. You start to kind of get an idea how the whole, machine works in a way, and figure out how to find a peaceful space. Something that you read in the George bio that you read was interesting to me. Where he,
go back to that, George.
Where he said, I wish he was here. Where he said that he encountered benevolent and malevolent things. A lot of people getting into contact experiences at first was really rather. Let me read that again.
I'll get right back to you.
Okay.
He's George. He's had an extraordinary life with a multitude of interactions with interdimensional and extraterrestrial beings of both benevolent and malevolent intent of many different levels of realities, both on and off world. Yes.
Okay,
so talk about that.
As a contactee, somehow or another, for his need to know kind of thing, he did not just say, I only want to talk to women light beings, Either it happened or he welcomed or he agreed to hearing the other side out, so to speak. And I think that's courageous, And also, you actually can, once you, come to a sense of who you are and your sovereignty as a being, you can withstand some discussion, for lack of a better word, with beings that are service to self and not any particular liking you for any reason or has your needs in mind at all. And it's weirdly insightful to, if you feel ready in your spirit to do that. I had an experience with my Anunnaki ancestor where I just was not getting this deep service to self that resulted in abuse that I endured. And as a part of my healing, my guide showed me the being that was behind some of these attacks that I got. And it was this being that called itself the nemesis, which is like, your nemesis, right? And I saw that through different people I encountered in my life, I was continually encountering this being, and there was the commonality. It's because I needed to see behind the scenes. And so I actually had this whole, almost like a ceremony, where I saw myself and this nemesis being as like two martial arts participants, who are very respectful and bow to each other at the beginning of the combat, and if they're both still standing at the end, they do that at the end of the conflict. And I found myself kind of having that experience of saying, good game, to this being.
Right.
And what my guide told me is that you will learn a lot from facing your nemesis, which is really another side of yourself, really. You'll learn more from that experience than you will from your family, your friends, your lover, or anyone else in your life, because it will test your beliefs and it will test your resolve. And that was really good, and I was glad that he mentioned that. A lot of people would either be afraid to do that or judgmental of somebody like him to say, why would you even talk, to a malevolent being? Well, if you're sure in yourself of your own connection to source to the point where, it's like a Hannibal Lecter movie where she's talking to him, but hey, there's a glass there. You kind of know there's something in between you and that being, then you can get some insight. Always recommend it.
Here.
Yeah, right.
Make sure there's glass here.
Yeah, make sure there's some kind of, you're on an even playing field so to be able to have a conversation and just an altercation. But yeah, I thought that was a good part of what he said.
That was a good. Some of these things are so dark you can only watch them once. It's not one that you want to say,
I couldn't even watch that one, honestly. I it was playing in my house, and I'd peek at it on occasion, but I really do have more trouble with just how Hollywood portrays stuff like that, because it seems like when it's more real to you, like it's part of your human experience, it does have kind of a balance to it that I think, just like how they portray abduction experiences is scary and negative. If you're actually going through some experiences like that, it's a little bit just more weird or, mysterious, not so scary, although it can be, and I don't want to dissuade anybody else's experience. It's just, to me, it's been more of a puzzle. What the heck was that?
Right.
Than it has been, horrible, terrible. So I think probably my encounters with, I'd say, deeply service to self beings is more, instructive, and I've allowed myself to have my balance within myself. I can reach into source and get my balance, the energy that I need to, that's interesting, being that you have that perspective. And if you're talking to a deep, dark, Illuminati kind of person or whatever, it's like they really believe that they're doing, I guess, the right thing, or they like playing the deep, dark, team dark, role, Yeah.
How would you have team light without team dark? That's their perspective. It's like, well, without us, everything om, and how much om can you take? Well,
it's good. I don't think we have to have. I think duality game or the duality dance is what we're doing right now, right? I call it the polarity dance. Just for to be funny.
Yeah, I think there's other operating systems besides the duality dance, but right now we're taught that that's the only dance there is, the duality dance. Is that true? No. But we don't see the other reality, other systems of operation.
When we become more integrated, that we'll find out there's a whole new set of things to explore. And one of them is, as I was been told, has to do with, we know we have benevolent helper races who are rooting for us. We've talked about it all the time. But how do you help somebody? That is not always easy. Do you do it for them? Or do you help them do it for themselves? Do you give them a fish or teach them how to fish? That's right. That's what their dilemma is now their society has commuted to this 4 or 5D dimensional plane or whatever, density plane, to turn around, and now they are very excited to help the ones in the lower struggle. How do you do that? Because what's happened sometimes is when these beings have visited us, we turned them into deities and completely distorted what they were trying to tell us, trying to teach us. We're just, that's God. That's our God. We're going to worship. We're going to make a temple. We're going to get busy with, our church. We're going to make a big,
I've
religion.
Heard that hypothesis that we did that, and there is a tendency to cargo cult, that type of thing.
Yeah.
But I think it's more complicated than that.
I do.
I think that was intentional to, on purpose, get us into that type of dynamic because the information wasn't revealed. So
I think somebody benefited from it. So why would they change it? Yeah.
Right. Oh, good. These guys, they're on their knees bowing to us, and they think we're God. They could have corrected that at any given moment. Oh, no, get off your knees. No. That was something they perpetuated that benefited them, and they kept it going because it was to their advantage to have these people be subservient and believing that these were something to be worshipped, to be stopped any time. So that's my perspective. Like, oh, no. And they kept altering the story every time. It was a psychological manipulation. They kept altering the story to make that more a reality of what it was going to end up looking like. These people worshiping us as gods. I'd like to see that change. Somebody come up and clean up that myth.
Well,
no.
They must have been pretty good at it because they've, as far as we researchers who look into this can tell, these bloodliner type of families that are at the top of the echelons of the world power grid system have been families who've been in place in those positions for 26,000 years, 13,000 years? I don't know how you measure it. How do we keep falling for that? It's just like Lucy and Charlie Brown. He always tries to kick the football.
Right.
Every single time, because locked into some kind of thinking to where he keeps hoping he's going to kick the football, and she always takes it away. And that's this dynamic that has been going a long time. Are we ever going to get out of it? I hope so. It really is a collective maturity.
I keep believing the sociopath.
Yeah.
I keep believing I've been Christianized. Turn the other cheek. So I keep believing that the sociopath, Lucy, is not going to pull the football out. I'm going to
right.
The football. But Lucy never changes. Lucy not only never changes, she goes, "Nanny, boo boo, got you to do it again, you stupid idiot. Nanny, boo boo."
Yeah, right.
Why do you keep believing me? Because she gloats.
I have to tell you about a contact incident I had that goes along with this. It's kind of short. One of my beings is on a ship that I'm in contact with. He has some kind of technological assist for telepathic contact. And when I'm looking, having this envisionment, it's like through a webcam type of thing on a panel looking into the science room where these 4 or 5 aliens are at. And they're all gathered around, look at me, and look through my eyes and check me out. And there's one being who's the main person speaking to me. And they were terribly fascinated with that I lived on a boat and that we have ocean on our surface that moves around. It's not frozen or it's not steam. They thought that was cool. Anyway, one of these aliens pops his head out behind this guy, this one main one I'm talking to, and it was a female, and it said, "Why are the babies in charge?" I was like, "What? Why are the babies in charge?" And I was like, "Oh." And what they meant was, why are they spiritually immature, sociopathic, psychopathic leaders who are literally pretty infantile in terms of their demands are in charge of your planet? That was a profound question.
Good question.
I don't know. I didn't know how to answer it. I don't know. But that marks our society. Probably have more like an adolescent style because of the value system is sex, drug, and rock and roll, right? It's material gratification and rewarding athletic prowess and beauty, over substantive soul values, that sort of thing. And it's like when Alex Collier was asked, why do you have to pay to be on the planet you were born on? They're really very curious as to why we're such a strange, illogical kind of place that way. So that's a fair question.
Yeah, that was a fair question. So did you ever get back to them with an answer for that?
No, I said that I wasn't sure the only thing I could say is that maybe a lot of very young souls are born here. It's possible that the youngest souls are born into a position of plenty, being rich, being everything taken care of, every whim taken care of, whereas my experience with people that are poor or disabled or whatever are some of the strongest, oldest souls that I know of. Mm-hmm. They're willing to take on hardship, deprivation, in order to understand it, in order to help this whole collective mature. So that was the best I could come up with.
I think a pretty good answer.
And by the way, speaking of Star Trek, by the way, this being looked like one of those beings on Star Trek you see from time to time that have blue skin and kind of a triangular-shaped head. I'm not kidding. Right out of Star Trek. That was amazing.
Oh.
Yeah.
And blue skin. Oh, the name for those.
Not an Andorian. It wasn't a humanoid with antenna. There was another one on one of the Star Trek movies, I think, that had kind of a triangular-shaped head and bluish-gray skin, I would say. Mm-hmm. And a very intelligent and curious. It was fun.
Wow. Well, they kept trying to convey, I think that Roddenberry and the people there were contacting you and they were getting information. They were kept trying to illustrate what they were encountering and doing the best they could. And sometimes it came out weird, like, what's that? But they did the best they could. Because you're trying to, I've tried to explain the beings that I've interacted with, and how do you explain that? Sometimes it's just like when I've seen a being that's kind of pig-like, and then people say, an intelligent pig, and I go, well, it's supposed to come to describing their features, but it's totally inaccurate. It's got nothing to do with really what they look like, but that's the best I can do with my limited vocabulary, because we haven't seen them before. How do you describe something we've never seen before? We put everything in human terms. Oh, that's a cat, that's a dog, that's an owl, that's a bear. But so many things we've never seen, so there's nothing in it looks like. Right?
Our planet, one species or branch of the animal world, primate, is the supposed, I don't say the most intelligent one on the world, planet. There's the cetaceans and even the pigs, for instance, are pretty intelligent. How intelligent it is to muck up the whole planet, I kind of doubt there's some lack of intelligence right there. But that's one time I was interacting with another group, and they were kind of almost like a plant-like humanoid species. They actually got their energy from photosynthesis. It's like a plant. And they were real tall and skinny, kind of real reed-like, skinny. And we were talking about learning systems, how different beings learn, like the biokind, bio-mind morphogenetic field. They were making a note of the fact that simians look what the other one's doing it, and then they do it. And then they said, monkey see, monkey do. That was so funny. Yeah. We still have this, they're very social beings, our simians, and that's why you get the hundreds monkey syndrome. It's because if one gets into it, the other ones get into it. And they learn from each other as much as learning on their own. So I thought that was kind of funny. Monkey see, monkey do. And we do. Don't we do that? Like somebody wears a certain kind of skirt, or we've got to have it, or, if somebody...
Well, that's why it's, there was a Star Trek episode where they left behind a tricorder. They weren't supposed to leave anything behind, because if you leave it behind with an intelligent species, they might figure it out, and monkey see, monkey do. They'll create it. And then when you go back to visit them, 50 years, they've evolved and they've created this stuff, and they've got technology just because one thing was left behind. So
that was a piece of the action. Another Star Trek episode where they left gangster videos.
Yeah, they're going to come and take us over. You left that behind. What were you thinking?
Well, we're very all curious about each other. I know that we're just as bizarre, to them, except that they got awareness of us, and we're, pretty much only contactees and some secret government people have knowledge about them. But, that's a very universal thing, is curiosity about other people and other experiences. So we're very interesting to them. We're not boring. We're weird. We are kind of weird when we look from the outside. They've had me look at our species from the outside. I think that's one of the reasons why they clamp down on, that don't want you to talk about your experiences, because it's comparative anthropology, right? It's like, once you know how they live, it's like, why can't we? When you find out, if you found out another planet has no homelessness, or in one case, one species I talked to, they absolutely were appalled at that we have starving children in the street, because they have a very different attitude about their children.
Right. Yeah.
And we allow them to be homeless and starving, and that brands us very primitive. I don't care what we invent. That brands us very primitive. So yeah,
we are a level 0 civilization. Very primitive.
Yeah.
That's sad.
It's a consciousness level that's being measured, not, how many laser beams we can create, I just got to tell you, I might get kicked off this line, like I've been having some technical difficulties, but it's been great.
Down. Anyway, this was a spontaneous show because we didn't get our guests, but George, we're going to work on it. We'll get you back another day.
We're inspired by George, right?
Well, George, he's very inspirational. I can't really wait to talk to him. I was, let's see, he said, the time has come for us as a human race to once again have access to forgotten knowledge and wisdom of life. We are on the precipice of monumental change as the end of the cycle for life eternal draws near. We don't know what that means. Cycle for life eternal draws near. But we've been talking about the progression of the equinox, and we had that in 2 shows. One with Tolik and who's the guy before? Anyway, 3 shows ago. In the time when the veil is lifted and all will be revealed, never has there been a time when the collective human consciousness has so reverently contemplated who we truly are, where we came from, what we are doing here, and where we are headed. So the question of all those things, but where we are headed, just been with this is my thoughts are, there's many ways we can head, because I was shown 3 or 4 different multiverses. And what they told me, the extraterrestrials that took me on to I call it a mothership, on command ship, was that we can head in 7.5 billion different directions. There might be some people who go, hey, she or he timeline, their reality. And that's what's behind the Christians and the Muslims and the Islam. Is like, I've got a better God and a better reality than they do. And so they enlist people into their version of reality. And at any time that reality isn't suiting you, is it working for you? Is it working for those you love and your family and your friends? You can stop, because we are the chooser. That's why I learned I'm the chooser. But it's just like Jesus. What I do, so can you. So you are the chooser. And if you find yourself choosing things that are not working, then stop. Choose something else. It's very, very simple. And you may think I'm in this matrix and I'm totally out of control. There's nothing I can do about it. Tension. The universe will open with the yeses, and they unfold, and before you know it, you've shifted things to something, a positive timeline, which works for yourself and your friends and your family and the world, in the country, and everywhere, your community. So that's all. That's what I've been with. Karen, your turn, and then we're going to go find some.
I'm still here. I don't know how long I will be. I've had some technical difficulties, but I just want to say to everybody, we can be the chooser. I really like that. I'm choosing a better way, you know. And I'm happier with my life now because I've been making those choices that were better for me and for other people. It doesn't have to be my way or the highway. So that's it, yeah.
Well, with that, I'm going to put next week, and it's been a very enjoyable conversation. So much love and blessings and aloha.
Aloha.
Have you heard? Metro by T-Mobile now includes Amazon Prime. Yes, enjoy the best of shopping and entertainment, movies, TV shows, music, free shipping, and much more. All included for just $40 per line for 3 lines. All on the T-Mobile network. Discover the smarter way. Metro by T-Mobile. That's genius. One offer per account. Offer subject to change. $12.99 per month value. Offer valid for new Amazon Prime members. Metro customers may notice reduced speeds versus some T-Mobile customers. Video at 480p. Capable device required. See store for details and terms and conditions.